Hey, and what is up guys, and welcome to a new video. This is a new client project. I just finished setting up the aquarium and you're going to see how I built this tank with the hardscape, with the planting, and a really cool, water filtration system in the basement. And I need your help, guys. Let me know which fish you think fit in the most, and now enjoy watching the tutorial. For this particular layout, I selected two beautiful, absolutely gorgeous pieces of driftwood. When I saw them, I immediately knew they were going to fit together really nicely because they just flowed together so well. Here I put them inside the aquarium, the larger piece first, followed by the second one. I was able to interconnect them in a way that they were already holding together by themselves. And there you see it, very minimalistic but already looking beautiful. Aside from those two main pieces, I didn't really know how the layout was going to turn out. I simply picked a bunch of smaller pieces and started assembling the composition. I had this beautiful branching structure on the right side and another one on the left, but the middle section still felt a little bit empty. So I started adding some smaller branches, one in the back and another one in the front, with everything pointing in roughly the same direction to really maximize the flow of the driftwood. I also added one more branch in the front to create some extra depth. And here you can see the almost complete composition. Throughout the process, I kept moving the branches slightly left and right, making sure they didn't overlap too much and that everything worked together as one nice, natural composition. Next up, I started gluing everything in place using my all-time favorite paper towel and liquid superglue technique. Here I'm using recycled paper towel, which is slightly brownish. Basically, paper towels are naturally more like this, and to get a really white appearance, they usually need to be bleached. So this version is even a little more environmentally friendly. And of course, I'm using the Arca Ultra Liquid Superglue. Those precision nozzles are, in my opinion, an absolute must-have. Links down in the description. And there you see quite a lot of smoke coming from the areas I have just glued as the superglue hardens. To camouflage those gluing spots even further, I sprinkled some soil dust on top and covered everything again with liquid superglue. This way, once it's finished, you can barely see where anything was glued. It simply blends in with the driftwood. Here is one more branch that I really struggled to add to the composition. There was this little tip on the piece of wood that was just slightly too long, so I needed to shorten it. Something like this I always leave until the very last step because I want to be absolutely sure I don't cut off anything I might still need. And there you see it. Once that little tip was gone, the branch fitted perfectly into the gap. Everything had already been connected with superglue, but to make sure the entire structure couldn't float up, I also glued the wood directly to the bottom of the glass using Arca Polyglue. It's somewhat similar to aquarium silicone, but it comes in this pressurized bottle, which makes it very easy to apply, and it hardens within just a few hours. Next, my friend and assistant Thomas and I filled some GWL filter socks with soil. The reason for doing this was the large empty space underneath the wood. I wanted to fill that space with substrate bags, so even if the loose substrate in the foreground moves or shifts over time, I'm not going to lose the substrate height in the back. The space underneath is already filled, it's still nutritious, plants can grow their roots through it, but at the same time it prevents the loose substrate from slowly falling through towards the front. It just gives me a safer feeling knowing that the substrate is going to stay where I want it, and that the shrimps can't slowly dig everything out from underneath. Now, with all the substrate bags in place, I started filling in the soil, and I'm using quite a lot of tropical aquarium soil here. While you see me adding the soil on the side, I'm also swapping out some of the LED modules. You see, the light originally came pre-filled with 2 different types of modules, and I didn't really like this kind of checked appearance when looking at the LEDs, so I swapped some of them around to have the same color modules next to each other. And if you have an aquarium with a lid, these daytime LEDs are actually very convenient. They are extremely modular, there are all kinds of mounting options, and you can even swap out the individual LED modules whenever you want. Now, with the substrate in place, it was time to tuck in the stones and create this natural feeling of water flowing around the wood. There is this famous Amano idea that every stone has a face, you just have to find it. So, whenever I place the stone, I try to find its nice side and present that towards the viewer, or towards the camera, if you are a contest aquascaper. Here, I arranged a couple of stones around the wood to give the whole composition a more mature and aged appearance. The idea is to make it look as if water has slowly washed away the substrate over time, exposing the stones around a fallen tree trunk with all these branches sticking out. Obviously, the plants are still missing at this point, but even just from the hardscape, you already get this feeling of erosion and of something that has naturally developed over time. And I really like it. I also arranged the stones in a way where I could already imagine which plants were going to go where. So at this stage, I was deliberately creating little planting areas within the hardscape. And I'm just super happy with how the composition turned out. It's very natural and has this really nice flow. And then the aquarium was filled with tap water for the first time and left to mature and cycle. This method is called the dark start method. Basically, you build your entire hardscape, add the substrate, connect the filter and fill the aquarium with water. But you don't add any plants and you leave the lights switched off. Then you basically forget about the aquarium for at least 4 weeks. In this particular case, the aquarium ended up cycling for around 2 months. The clients were traveling quite a lot and I've been busy as well. So it simply stayed like this for a little longer. And here we are, 2 months later. You can see that quite a lot of biofilm has formed on the wood. I'm also removing some of the stones I had placed on top just to be absolutely sure that all the glue had enough time to harden and that the wood had soaked up enough water that it wasn't going to float anymore. In here, I'm using a toilet brush. Just make sure to use a fresh one for this purpose. I actually find this super handy for cleaning driftwood because you have bristles all the way around and you can easily get in between all those little branches. So I brushed all the biofilm off the wood and you can see all that gunk floating around in the water. Then I cleaned the glass and completely drained the aquarium. And while the aquarium was draining, Thomas and I started preparing all the plants. And at this moment I'll just let you enjoy a little montage of us cleaning and preparing everything. I also love using bulbitis and other ferns as aqua decor. I simply rip them off the decoration they come attached to and immediately you have this beautiful, mature and really bushy fern. One plant that wasn't from Tropica was Helantium tenellum red. I got this from Aquascape, shout out to them. And here you see the difference between a regular tissue culture cup and the XL cups that Aquascape provides. You simply get a really huge amount of plant material in these, so they are really great value for your money. Once all the plants were prepared, we stored them in these plastic containers to prevent them from drying out. We also separated all the garbage because we live in Germany and we recycle everything. With the substrate nice and wet, Thomas and I started planting the aquarium, beginning with the carpeting plants. And wherever you see those little bamboo skewers, they mark specific sections for specific plants. I really like doing this beforehand because it gives us a clear planting map and makes the whole process much easier. And yes, here we are trimming off all the existing leaves from the Cryptocoryne willisii because they were simply way too large. This is a trick of mine. Don't worry, they will grow back, but this way the new growth should be much smaller and more compact. Here we have another beautiful bushy portion of Bulbitis haudelotti. To attach it, I'm using this time Arca Gel Superglue. And whenever I glue a rhizome plant like this, I make sure to apply the glue directly to the rhizome itself, not just to the roots. That way, when I press the plant onto the wood, the actual rhizome is firmly attached instead of just having a couple of roots glued down, and the plant actually looks like it's growing directly on the wood instead of floating somewhere above it. One of the Bulbitis portions came with super large leaves, so I simply cut all of them off, another trick, and planted just the rhizome. It will grow back in no time with fresh leaves inside the aquarium. The whole planting process took way too long, and towards the end we really had to speed up things and get everything planted as quickly as possible. Here in the foreground we have Lelopsis brasiliensis mixed with some Marsilea hirsuta and little patches of Helantium tenellum red. And now you can see an overview of the aquarium with most of the foreground planted, including the Cryptocoryne with all the old leaves trimmed off. This way they'll hopefully grow back much smaller and more compact right from the start. The back of the aquarium was planted with Cryptocoryne venetiae green mixed with Cyperus helferi. We also added Cryptocoryne spiralis red, particularly behind the larger sections of driftwood. The idea was to create two distinct planted hills on either side with a slightly more open valley running through the middle. We finalized the planting with a lot of Bucephalandra sordidula blue and Micrantha needleleaf. In addition, we also used a lot of Ricardia camadrifolia moss and spread it all naturally across the wood. Now let's quickly check out the basement, because this is where the water for the water changes is coming from. Here we have a Gardena hose that automatically rolls the hose back up. The water line runs across the ceiling into this huge 300-liter reservoir. Inside is a Gardena pump, and the water itself is filtered using my absolute favorite Arca My Aqua 3800 RO system. For me, this is simply one of the nicest, most practical systems out there, and probably best looking as well. The water also runs through the multi-filter for 1000, which brings me down to a TDS of 0. So we end up with perfectly pristine and super clean water that can be pumped straight from the basement into the aquarium. One little extra feature here at the end, Arca recently launched Ultra Pure. It's a chemical filtration media designed to absorb impurities from the water. If you have colored water, for example, a brownish tint that you sometimes get from fresh driftwood, this should help removing it. And I'm pretty sure this wood is going to release at least some color into the water. There are also going to be excess nutrients during the initial phase of the aquarium, especially with all these freshly planted plants adapting to their new environment. So I decided to add one pouch to the filter. And for this, I cut out a section from the top sponge inside the biomaster to create a dedicated little slot for the Arca Ultra Pure pouch. This way, the water should flow nice and evenly through the entire pouch instead of just passing around it. And one of the very last steps is remineralizing the RO water. For this, I'm using APT Sky. 1 scoop per 100 liters gives me roughly GH5 and KH0, which are basically my favorite water parameters for planted aquariums. And to finish off everything, I'm adding 1 small bottle of Arca Special Blend to kickstart the system. I have just added a huge amount of fresh plant material and completely changed the biological conditions inside the aquarium, so this gives the filter a little extra boost and helps get everything going. Okay guys, this has been it. I hope you enjoyed watching that video. Don't forget to smash the like button, and yeah, next time you're gonna see an update with a fish added based on your comment. So make sure you drop the comment below with the fish choice. Thanks for watching. See you next time.